Hi, it's Chris Feehan from the Empire City Garrison here with the ECG Armory again. Today we're going to just do some cutting of our forearms and maybe do some of the legs. We did do all the trimming. There's just one more piece of trimming I want to do before we line them up and get them sorted out, and that's the trimming along the edge. Now, as you know, we're doing the cover strips along that edge, and there is some additional trimming that's got to be done so that half of this strip will line up here and the other half on the other half of the biceps and the legs and so forth. Now, there are two sides to this. This one has two ridges here that are obvious, so these will be easy. We can cut off both of those on these, so that'll be 4 cuts there. On these, I don't do both sides yet. I leave this side because this side you can have a little wiggle room and you can determine exactly the dimension that you want, and we'll do some measuring and get the exact dimension, the angle of the cut we want to make here. We'll save that for another video, but I can do the cut here where we have this ridge because we know it's got to be 7.5 or so millimeters. So we're going to go and do that on both of these and get that ready for the next step. If we have time, we're also going to do the legs and get that front cut done on both the thighs and the shins. We'll see how far we can get. So basically what I do is I take my ruler and I measure that and pencil it out and then just make the cuts. And what I like to do is do it on the end of the desk here. So hopefully with this angle you'll be able to see as I cut with the razor blade and get that angle here on the edge here. I also have gotten a little better ruler here to do the actual cut. I was having a problem. I've been using this ruler, as you can tell, for probably 12 years. It's a little beaten up. The problem I always had with this one is slippage. Sometimes it slips a little. I got one with a rubber back, so hopefully that'll keep it in place as I'm making the cut with the razor blade, and it won't shift as much while I'm doing the cut, and that's really critical. You don't want to have a wavy line or a line that's not even the entire way down. So what I'm going to do here is just mark off on each end, and a couple of ways as we go down, about where 7.5 millimeters is, because that's how wide this has to be to accommodate that strip and have them join. So it's about half that space. I'm going to just make a line right here at that approximate area. And again, we can always trim off a little more, but I want to get it about right from the get-go here. So that's about 7.5. That's about 7.5. I'm going to make a line all the way down, going from where the ridge is to that approximate space here. And I'm making a couple lines so that I can make sure that I'm hitting it every time. Let me see if I get that one. And then the end one is going to be the critical one, so let me make sure I get that one right. Okay, so we got that marked off. I'm going to put on the edge here. I'm going to use my ruler here. I'm going to use my razor blade to do the cut here. Let me see if this is working better. I might actually cut off this extra ridge here quickly, just because that's going to get in my way. Again, that's why I hate these ridges, these extra ridges from the molding, because they do interfere with you when you're trying to cut. I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm just quickly trimming this off just to make it so it's flat against the desk, because all this material is going anyway. It doesn't really matter. I'll do the same on the other side too while I'm at it. Still a little ridge there, but I'm not going to be too concerned. Okay, let me see if I can get that as flush here as possible. I'm going to hold this down really tight. Let me Make sure I get it all lined up. And that'll be the ridge that we're going to use for the cover strips. I'm still getting a little slippage there, which I don't want. I'm going to try a little bit different angle here. Make sure it doesn't move. We did have a little drift there. Oh, got a little drift there too, but we're okay. We're still on track. Okay. I'm going to crack that off. I'm going to have to use the scissors on the corner here. Okay, now we go there. Now again, we can sand this down a little bit. Try to make it even. And if we have to take off a little bit more material, I would rather be more conservative. I'll do the other side here. Let me just quickly measure. Make sure we're getting it from the edge. About 7.5 millimeters. Just making marks right along so that I stay true the entire way down. Okay, and I made those dotted lines. Again, I'm going to try to lay this as flush as I can as I put this on here. This one's going to be tough because there is a bit of a ridge on the other end here. So use some pressure to get that down because this is kind of a curved piece. Just line up the ruler here and the ruler on the other end. And try to keep it stable. So this one's going to be a little more challenging. It's a little more curved. Push down and make sure I got it all the way in. A little off on this side. Okay, I think that's about right. Let me make sure it's the whole way down. Okay, the end's a little drifting, but I'm going to go with it. Using a little bit of pressure as I move, trying not to cut myself again. You saw on the end there I kind of drifted off because I was trying to follow the line and not necessarily the ruler there. I think the ruler was a little off. This has a little too much. I'm going to have to trim this down. But it's a start. Crack that. Just give it a quick sanding. Okay, it's a little too big on this end. I tried to come in a little, but I kind of missed it, but we'll see how that fits up with the other piece. Do the same on this one. Again, I'm going to cut off these ridges. Make it a lot easier. And we're going to make our marks here. Again, I'm making it a little bigger than 7.5. You want to make sure you do get that ridge in there. And you could always take off a little more if you need to. Do the other side too, so we can do both cuts quickly here. Now on the legs we have to do 10 and 10 because those are 20, and on the backs of the shins we have to do 12.5 and 12.5 because they should be 25. So again, this is half the width of a cover strip approximately, so that when we join them together the cover strip will fully cover and sit on this ridge that's on each side. Okay. Push that all the way into the desk here. Line this up as best we can. And try to hold that in place as I run the razor blade down it. And there's some wiggle here, but I'm going to try to do my best here. Because this side has that little return edge, the return edge makes it a little more difficult. Oh, I'm going a little too close here. I'm just going to do it by eye for the rest. Very good. Okay. And that was a little off, but it's okay. It'll be hidden by the cover strip. And again, we can trim off a little more. And if we're a little short, we should be okay. Do the other side. I'm going to try to hold that with as much pressure as I can, just to keep my line straight as possible. I'm going to have to nick this little corner piece here. See the little ridge? It's going to make it so it can't break, so I'm going to just snip it right there. And it should be able to break okay. There we go. Give that a little rub. Okay, so you see that's much more trimmed. It's ready to have the cover plate put on, but we're only going to do on this one again, we're only going to do this side because we're going to have to determine where on here exactly we're going to make the other line to make it join, because we're not sure yet. We have to figure out the sizing. You can actually, there's some wiggle room here of how big you can make it. And we'll do that as the final step. Let me trim off the edges here. And even though we're not doing this one yet, I am going to just trim off this edge while I'm here. I'm definitely not going to need all of this. I'll probably cut it somewhere in there, but definitely not that much. I'll do the same on this one. Again, I'm not being that careful because I'm taking off most of this anyway. Okay, so let's do our measuring. Make sure we get the right width down the entire length of the bicep here. You just want to keep consistent so that we're the same width the entire way down. And I might do the other one too, I like the ruler out. I like to do it the whole way along. You don't have to do that. You could just do both ends, but I like to do it the way along just so I know if I'm still on track as I'm cutting. Okay, we'll get this lined up. Get the ruler just as a guide as we're going. Try to maintain that straight line. And this is shifting a little bit. I'm going to just try to use some pressure to try to keep it down as best as possible. I'm using a lot of pressure, but trying to maintain a straight line as I go. And unlike the cover strips, we don't have to be as concerned with it being a little jagged because, again, it's going to be under the cover strip, so you're not really going to see it, but you want to make it big enough to fit the cover strip and hold the glue and make lining it up not as difficult. This one's a little, I should have used a little more pressure, I think. Let me just, this is a little thicker. Get both corners. See if I can crack that. There we go. Get rid of any of the little inconsistencies there. Now you'll really see this is the left, how this is going to line up. We're going to find a point here, line these up. The cover strip is then going to go on top of this. We're going to use a 15. I'm going to use one of these 15s. It's going to cover up that space almost completely. A little bit on each end, but not much that you'll see. So that'll be the join like that. And we'll glue that down and put some clamps and some magnets to keep it down. And that'll be a nice finished edge on this bicep piece here. Now, as I said, on the other side, we still have to decide where to make that cut. This we already know joins up like this. This we're not exactly sure. This you kind of have to judge how much you want to take off and how big you want the biceps. I'm probably going to keep most of it, but I might trim it a little bit just to make them a little tighter. I'll see how it shapes out as I go. You'll also notice they don't line up perfectly. That's normal. The cover strips kind of hide that. We'll probably go more up to kind of meet with the ridges that we have over here already established. The little return edge. We'll probably try to meet the return edge. And then on the front they'll be a little off, but you won't really notice that with the cover strips. I'll show you another finished set and you'll see that that's normal for them to be a little off. Okay, let's do the last one here, and then we can maybe start on the legs, depending on the amount of time we have left. Line up the ruler. Try to get a stable hold on this as we get ready to cut. Okay, I'm trying to use some pressure here to make sure that we're on a stable surface here. See, the ridges make it really difficult, but we're going to do our best here. Shift. I don't want to take the blade out. Get a little close, I'm going to have to move out a little. Okay. I did a little wiggle there, but again, the cover strip will cover that, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. And I'm just snipping the ends here where we have the return edge just to make sure I can crack it off. Okay. Very nice. Now again, there's going to be some minor adjustments. There's going to be some trimming on the return edge over here just to make sure they meet up, and we'll see how that fits. Now let's see how this is lining up with the right one. Okay, you can see that little dip I made there, but again, it's going to be hidden by the cover strip, so I'm not too concerned. And on some parts I also do a back cover strip, or a little, I'll use some extra material just to reinforce it from the back. You can see there, that'll line up nicely. And then the cover strip will cover this entire space. Now what I usually do is once I line it up and I figure out where the cover strip's going to go and how I'm going to glue it, I'll tape it from behind with some blue tape and have the magnets already in place so that when I do this I can just pop the magnets on the top. And again, I'm going to judge on this other side exactly how big we want to make it. Okay, let's try to tackle the front of the shins. I think the shins would be the next logical ones to do. And these are the ones that really, it's not evident how they're going to line up until you do the trimming. Let me get a 20. This is the bigger cover strip, the 20 millimeter. And these, it's hard to visualize exactly how they're going to look until you cut off this edge, because you can see how large it is. Most of this is coming off on this one, as well as this one and this one. Let me get the last one. So these are going to be trimmed substantially, but again, I'm only going to do the front. The back is always something you have to kind of judge based on how everything lands. So I'm going to quickly cut this off, this excess ridge here. Just to make it easier to lay the ruler. I'll do the same on the back edge. This one I'm going to leave as much as possible because I don't know where, again, I'm going to cut this exactly as of yet. This is just a very rough trim. Let me do it from the bottom up because I'm getting a little too deep in there. And again, these are Cutco scissors, great for this kind of rough trimming. Just to get off some of this extra material before you make a cut. And I'm going to try to leave as much as possible just to make it easy to break when I break off the piece. A lot of trimmings here. Okay, so now we're going to start on the measuring. Again, I'm only going to do this front ridge where it has the defined area for where the cover strip's going to go. I'm going to use my ruler, and this time it's 10 millimeters, the entire way up, not 7.5, because the cover strip is 20. And we want to make it completely cover this, right up to that ridge area. Just going to find where that ridge starts, mark it. Mark it, and I'm going to mark it right on the edge. This one I got to kind of guess at because the ridge ends, but I see about where it is. It's about here. And I'll do the same on this one. Oh, that's wrong actually. Wait, where is it? There it is. It's here. That was a little too close. Do right at the edge just to make sure I'm getting it accurate. Okay, so now we're going to do the same kind of procedure. We're going to lay it on the bench here and try to make that cut. You can see this is not straight. This kind of has a wiggle to it, so we're just going to do our best to keep a straight line down that entire length with approximately, you know, that line as best as possible as I put some pressure on it to try to straighten it. A little wiggly there, but I'm okay. Oh, a little too much, but came back in track there. Okay, let me trim the edge here a little. Right where the ridge is, I'm just going to trim it there. See if I can break it off. There we go. Let's move on to the others. This one we already have marked. Again, you can see that this is curved, so I'm trying to flatten it out. Make sure I'm kind of on track as I move along. Just trying to use that as kind of a guide as I go. Make sure I stay on track. This one's going to be really, this one's really curved. Let me use a little more pressure and stick it in a little more. I don't want it slipping as I go. Actually, I'm dispensing with the ruler here because it's just not keeping it straight. I'm just going to do it by eye as best as I can. Try to keep a steady hand. You see how it's drifting a little? Yeah, this one was too curved to even keep it straight. But again, as long as it's about the same the whole way down, the cover strip will cover that. A little wavy, but it's okay. Get to the next one here. We've got 2 more to do. And then I'll do the other ones probably with a sped up video just to show you the process for the thighs and the biceps, which is a very similar process. The biceps I can pretty much do both. I don't think I'm going to be resizing them too much, but I'll see how it plays out. Okay, that one's a little big. Hold on. Got a little inner line there. I'll mark the other one so we can quickly get that one done as well. I know this takes a lot of time, and a lot of people get impatient and try to rush it and try to just go at it. It really pays to take your time and make sure your measurements are as accurate as possible, so that everything lines up when you're ready to actually do the final assembly, which we're getting close. I'd say the next episode or 2 we'll start doing some assembly. And once we have it all assembled, then we start doing the strapping and other parts to make it wearable. Okay, so again, I'm doing 10 millimeters the whole way down. And just making sure I'm keeping with that line as I cut. Okay, so let's do this one first, and then I'll show you how it lines up as we... Ooh, this one's really, really curved. I'm just going to use this as a guide. I'm going to have to do it by eye as best as I can. That's why why I make a couple of lines as I go, so I can try to keep on that line. I think it's more important here that I keep it stable as I cut and against the cutting board than it is that I have the ruler there. So let me just see. Try to do it as steady-handed as possible here. This is going to be a little wavy. I'm keeping with my thumb, I'm like keeping the same distance the entire way down as I can. Okay. That one was a little closer than I would have liked, but again, the cover strip will cover it. In the top, I went a little close, probably a millimeter or two, but you could also shave that off. And what's this here? Okay, there we go. And we'll do the final one here. This one's not as bad, the curvature, but it's hard to keep it level and keep it stable. So I'm going to push it in. This one I'm going to push in as much as I can and just try to hold it stable as I try to cut. So pardon me if I'm blocking, but I'm just going to try to keep it down as tight as I can. So I keep a nice stable line here. I see the line. And again, I got to keep that constant pressure. You want to be able to crack it. So I'm trying to keep pressure as I'm trying to maintain the straight line. I'm as straight as I can here. Just kind of winging this one. Ah, good. I got it mostly straight the entire way. And again, the cover strip will cover it. So I know that's probably the sixth time I've said that, but it's true. These sometimes I'd also do with the scissor, but with that you don't get as clean of a line. I like to have a clean line here so that I can, when possible, meet them up as closely as possible. Okay, so now we'll see basically how they line up. We'll get the left one of this. There we go. Okay, now you can see how much nicer that's going to look. Still some lining up to do. Again, some of that variation in the line I might have to shave down with some sandpaper. But the basic point here is that these are going to be joined like so with the cover strip on top. We're going to do some manipulation with the cover strip. The cover strip is actually going to fall a little below the top ridge there. So we're going to have these like this and the cover strip on top. You can see that's going to cover that entire ridge right up into where the ridges are. So that's going to look really good once we get these lined up. It's going to look really nice. See, like that. So it's going to look really good. Now the backs again, These are just rough cuts. We're going to figure out the exact dimensions and where we want to cut them to meet each other. And that's kind of a guess. And with that, the cover strip goes on one side, what we call the flap side. And we put the cover strip only on that side, and then Velcro on the back, which connects the Velcro on the back of the shin here. So that's gonna line up really nice. Just do one more time here to see how we're gonna. Again, you can see this is lining up really well. Let me just take one more look. Make sure I got the same ones, left and right. Yeah, that's gonna line up nicely. We just gotta glue it together, and we should be good. Fantastic. Okay. Well, that's it for today. I'll continue on with the other parts of the legs, and we'll continue on and hopefully get to the assembly in the next episode or two and get some final parts going. Thanks, everybody.